What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Welcome to the Notre Dame Six-Pack Show. 6 Fighting Irish topics, and we have 6 minutes to discuss each of them. I'm Mike Singer, and with me I have Tyler Horka and Jack Soble to discuss, like I said, 6 Notre Dame things. Folks, go ahead and hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content if you are new here. 5 p.m. Eastern time slot, so it's a little bit different. With a little one, this is very, very convenient, I will say. So I hope maybe we don't get a lot of live viewers, folks watching back. I think this is a great product to watch a replay of. So continue to do that. So, fellas, I trust that you guys are doing well. Tyler, Jack, everything good?
Yeah, I'm just liking the comments, the live thread here. We appreciate everyone. They say they're liking this 5 p.m. slot because I guess maybe it gets them out of some house duties, or maybe you get to drink in your own 6-pack a little bit early while we're taking on a different kind of 6-pack in the form of Notre Dame banter news. So yeah, this is it's a good time to get things done, especially for you, Mike. Like you said, you got to get a little one to bed at what is her bedtime, like
It's
6,
around
7?
Yeah, 7. So we start bedtime around 6:30, 6:40. So this is it's nice to have this done and then have the evening with the wife. So boys, I appreciate the 5 p.m. Hope it we get some good viewership here.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks guys for doing this again. I thought it went well last week. I bit frazzled at the moment because I had the link open earlier on my desktop to send it to someone else, and I left it open. So when the show started, I heard Mike from both my laptop, on which I'm doing the show, and my desktop. So muted myself real quick to take care of that issue. But that's kind of how my week has been. But looking forward to this as always.
No one needs to hear Mike Singer twice. We'll just leave it at that once.
Hand up. That's happened to me before when I was in my younger producing days. I was like, what the heck's going on? I realized I had the YouTube link up. So yeah, it's no fun.
We all do it. I still mute myself all the time. And I'm sure I'll do it tonight. And I definitely did it last night. So let's dive into the topics here. First of all, we have the transfer portal departures. You might think, what the heck are you talking about here, Mike? So Jack wrote an article about the players who left Notre Dame in the offseason and where their destinations were. Maybe some of them you missed as a Notre Dame fan. So when I saw that, I was like, I think this would be a really good topic. So I want to throw it over to Jack as the person who wrote the article. And the prompt here, Jack, is any of like the departures / destinations surprise you when you look back at it a few weeks removed?
Yeah, none that jump out too much. I feel like none of them were like, oh, this is really shocking. The one surprise was that Jaden Mickey was committed and then decommitted from Cal for 2 months that we didn't really know about. So he's now at Boise State, and for at least a second straight year, an ex Notre Dame player is going to come to Notre Dame Stadium. And again, like I like Jay Carr's comment that like you might have thought Jaden Mickey would go closer to home, and he did originally at Cal. He's a California guy, but he's going somewhere where he could realistically play and start in the college football playoff. I think Boise State, yes, they lost a superstar in Ashton Genty, but they brought back their quarterback. They brought back most of the offensive line, and they brought back most of the defense. They're going to be right up there for the Group of 5 playoff spot. So I like that spot for Mickey, even though it's not necessarily what we would have expected.
I think Pat Coogan to Indiana is probably one that I remember when I posted it on social media. We put it on the message board. That probably got the most play because here you are, what would it have been, about a month removed, maybe just over a month from Notre Dame playing against Indiana in the college football playoff. And then all of a sudden Pat Coogan's like, you know what? Yeah, that's a team that I want to suit up for. So at one point in time, he was saying some F-bombs, probably in vain, against Indiana Hoosiers' name. And then 5 weeks later, that's where he's at. And then I want to talk about Rocco Spindler going to Nebraska as well. I think on the flip side of the hoopla, the Hoosier hoopla, if you will, him not choosing Michigan was probably a pretty big deal too, because I think some people were kind of pins and needles, holding their breath type of situation, saying, please don't go to Michigan. Please don't give us a chance or an opportunity or a reason to dislike you, Rocco Spindler, because that's what Notre Dame fans were saying, right? Like, we like you so much. You came in, started 10 games in the 2023 season, starts 13, I think, in 2024 out of necessity because of the injuries that offensive line sustained. So him going to Nebraska, don't really have to worry about him because Matt Rule might have that thing on the up and up, but like the up and up for Nebraska is probably like 8-4, 9-3, right? Where did they go last year, Jack? I don't even know. Was it around there?
I want to say 7-5, 6-6. They made a bowl game for the first time in a while. That was a big deal there, but it was another one of those seasons where like a couple plays go one way or the other, and they're 9-3. Nebraska's had a couple.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. They're kind of on the up and up, and like I don't think any Notre Dame fans are going to be mad if Rocco Spindler is starting for Nebraska and they go 10-2. They'd probably be pretty happy for him, right? So that's pretty cool. Again, you kind of alluded to it. Jaden Thomas coming to Notre Dame Stadium. That is home game for Notre Dame, right? The Virginia game, or Notre Dame has to go out there.
They don't play Virginia this year.
Oh, what were you alluding to again? There's points lost
Boise State comes here. Boise State,
yeah, that's crazy. I still haven't fully comprehended that Boise State, and that was obviously a late schedule ad too. Like we didn't learn about that until
last year at some point,
or early in the football season at some point.
Sometime in the fall. I'm excited for that. Like I think a the Mickey storyline is there, and B, like that's a really cool, good team that has never played Notre Dame.
I think you're right about that. I remember writing about this, but I don't know when it was. And none of the other ones are really all that surprising. Like I guess Sam Pendleton, maybe if you look at the Tennessee thing, like good football program. Is there a lot of upward mobility for Sam Pendleton at Tennessee? Like, is he going to start right away? I'm not sure. Maybe they promised him a pretty big bag. But the other ones make sense. Like Ty Chan's going to play at UConn, right? Deion Colsey's going to play at Miami University. Tyson Ford could play at Cal. Aiden Gobira should definitely play at James Madison. So a lot of these make sense, and I don't think a lot are all too surprising.
Pendleton, I feel like he's a talented player, but he just kind of saw the writing on the wall with so much young talent in that room.
For sure.
I think like while Tennessee's offensive line isn't going to be bad, it's not going to have as much young talent as Notre Dame's does. So I think he'll have a shot. And his was also one of those where like he visited the day after he entered the portal and committed the day after that, and he entered with a non-contact tag. So he's someone who like Tennessee had targeted him, and he knew precisely where he was going the day he entered.
The offensive line, I guess we're talking about 9 guys that left, right? And 4 of them are from the offensive line. This doesn't have to be all combative, me and you. I actually want to ask you a question. Like, do you think Notre Dame lost too much? We talked about all the young talent that they have, but like losing 4 guys who could viably play, 2 who started from mid-September on. Like, did they lose too much, you think?
I'm not going to say that losing Coogan and Spindler doesn't hurt them, because like anytime you lose 2 guys who started and played well, it's going to be tough. But like, this is the inevitability of having a lot of talent in one position group, because like I don't think there's anything Notre Dame could have done differently here. Like these are 2 guys who you couldn't guarantee starting spots, and who deserve to start in the Power 4. So I think that, and they also have 1 year of eligibility left. So I think that this reflects more well on Notre Dame than poorly. By the way, one note on Coogan to Indiana: his girlfriend either is or recently was a student there, so that has something to do with it. One would think.
Sure, no doubt.
All right, yeah, good job, boys. So that's transfer portal departures as the bell goes, and then next up, Notre Dame NFL Combine recap. We'll spend 5 minutes on it. We previewed it last week, so I figured we'll talk about it, but. Riley Leonard through 6 minutes. Thank you. 6 minutes. JP Poole, appreciate the 10, by the way, brother. Leonard threw it around a little bit. What else happened, Jack, for those who maybe don't follow the combine religiously? Yeah,
it was an uneventful week for reasons that in hindsight we should have been able to predict, because Notre Dame guys, and I think most of Ohio State's guys did this too, because of the disadvantage they have in preparation. Like as soon as you enter the draft, you spend all that time preparing for the combine. And Notre Dame had between 1 month and almost 2 months less time to prepare than pretty much everyone else who entered the draft. Like 2 months for the guys who opted out of the bowl game. So in terms of the guys who tested, Mitchell Evans ran a 4.7 4.40. which I think is fine for him. It's not terrific, but it's not bad by any means. His game isn't based on speed, so as long as his time wasn't awful, he'd be fine. 4.74 is not awful for his size. Evans, I believe, is in the green on the relative athletic score, which means he compares well to tight ends who have come into the league relative to size. So I thought he had a pretty good combine. There are a couple other guys who participated in drills, but I'll let Ty chime in.
Yeah, I guess Jack Kaiser looked pretty good in some of his on-field work, but he didn't do. You have the on-field drills, right? Yeah. Which is like the easy. Mitchell Evans does the gauntlet where he catches like 3 balls and runs upfield. Riley Leonard throws short, intermediate, long balls. Which, by the way, I think he looked pretty good. I was surveying social media, and there's so many draft heads out there now, Jack, and I think you actually even know one pretty well, right? One of your friends is one of these guys who,
a good buddy from college does draft stuff. I think he's with Pro Football Network now.
Yeah, so like it's gotten to a point where I trust these outlets because this is what they do. And I just like searched Riley Leonard's name on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I think we're still calling it Twitter around these parts.
I'm still calling it Twitter.
Yeah, and it was like, Riley Leonard was, and again, you have to take it with a grain of salt because who really threw and like who I guess Will Howard did throw and he looked terrible. Like there's all these different things and whatnot, but I kept consistently seeing Riley Leonard looked really good. Riley Leonard was throwing the ball really well. And you watch the clip that NFL Network puts out, and I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, who's like at the top of the list of guys you should be listening to for the draft. And he says, this has been a really good showing for Riley Leonard. So you wrote it in your piece at blueandgold.com. He's one of the guys that like had to impress in the combine and whatever he does at pro day. Like people have eyes on him because they're so fringe on him right now. Can he play in the NFL? Can he not? They don't know. So anytime he goes and looks good in Indianapolis, throwing whatever routes that he threw or answers the questions well, you think he probably blew people away in the little meetings that they do with teams. Like I think all of that mattered. So he probably helped himself. I think Jack Kaiser helped himself. I saw another one of those social media posts, kind of like with Riley Leonard, where Howard Cross won the interview session and they're like, holy cow, this guy's like such an Energizer bunny. We knew that covering him for a couple seasons, Jack. Xavier Watts, same way. He's not as emotional in those interview settings, I would say, but he carries himself well. And that's just the Notre Dame.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like that's just the Notre Dame way. These guys go down there and you're going to be like, holy cow, that was impressive. So overall, Benjamin Morrison's another guy you can throw in that like injured hip, didn't do anything, but people talked to him. And I bet people came out of those rooms like, I like Benjamin Morrison. Let's watch his tape. Holy cow, he's that good of a football player. We probably want to draft him. I think it was that kind of week for Notre Dame down there.
Yeah. For Cross was actually the other one who did drills. He didn't do like the 40 or the agility drills, but he did the jumps, and his jumps I think was like 29 inch vertical, 8'8" broad jump, which are both like kind of middle of the pack, probably closer to the bottom than the top. For defensive tackles, he looks like Cross was a super productive player at Notre Dame, but he's looking like a fringe late round / potentially priority free agent guy, just because at his size you need to do well in those jumps to show that you're explosive. And his jumps were a little bit underwhelming, as was I think the end of his 2024 tape, just because largely because of that nagging ankle injury. So we'll see if he can test better at the pro day. I thought Leonard had a good workout as well, and I think Leonard has really helped himself this offseason. I also think, again, that Leonard is a guy who, if you're Notre Dame, you would have loved to get him for 2 years, because after a year, if he felt comfortable in the system for a year, had better chemistry with his receivers all season, I think he would have a really good 2025 for them. But if I'm an NFL evaluator and I'm looking at, again, this terrible quarterback draft class relative to recent years, you're thinking like, oh, this is a guy who's 6'4", who is really athletic, who's going to be a great leader in the locker room, who's fearless, who's competitive, and he's getting better as a passer. Maybe we can work with this in round 4. If I was a team, that's what I'd think about Riley right now.
Yeah, I guess that answers TXND's or who said that? Yeah, TXND. Where's Riley Leonard getting picked? Is that best case scenario, Jack? 4th round?
I've seen a couple people who said like potentially even as high as round 3, but he could also go as low as round 6. So I think round 4 is you never know with the quarterbacks. By the way, yes, Cross was asked to work out as a fullback, so that was one more interesting note, as TXND pointed out.
I have a $10 bet going right now that Leonard gets drafted. It's a $10 Taco Bell gift card right now. It's 10. Tim thinks he goes. He thinks that Riley goes undrafted, and I'm like, he's going to try to. I know Tim.
He's getting drafted.
He's getting drafted. Tim's going to pull out some
Here-
legalese or something to get out of this verbal.
Here's the thing on quarterbacks getting drafted, and maybe Ian Book was this. When did Ian Book go? Was it like 6th round?
No,
end of the 4th. End of the 4th.
Okay,
second,
that even further
4th round or something.
Yeah,
that proves my point even further. I covered
Leonard is
Tommy
a better draft prospect.
Stevens. Yeah, no, for sure. I covered Tommy Stevens at Mississippi State. Dude literally got benched for Will Rogers, who ended up at Washington, I think, the last 2 years, whatever. Long careers for these guys. And Tommy Stevens still got drafted. I think it was a Taysom Hill thing. It might have been the Saints, but I was like, you know how we do these pre-writes for the draft, Jack? We're going to have to get into that mode in about a month and a half where we got all these shells for guys who could potentially get drafted. I didn't have a shell for Tommy Stevens because I was like, no freaking way. And then I got burned. So you bet your bottom dollar we're going to have a shell for Riley Leonard getting drafted. 100%.
Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. Appreciate everyone trickling in as we haven't gone live at 5 p.m. Eastern in several years. Maybe not several years, a couple years.
Hey Horka used to be 3
afternoon, like 3 o'clock on a Monday, dude. But that was football season.
3 years ago, 2 years. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's football season, so it can be tricky. But yeah, folks, hit the thumbs up as we continue on through the topics. And the headline of this is, when we were texting this morning about topics, what I always do is I just look through what you guys have been writing, what's popping on the board. And one of your Hey Horka articles was someone asked a question: how long do you foresee the quarterback competition? Everyone's talking about who's going to start. We're having those conversations, but what about how long you guys see this competition going into fall camp? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I can kick this off because I guess we're talking about that Hey Horka article. And shoot, man, I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, so I don't remember exactly what I said in this article last week. But I probably said that I think it's going into fall because all the writing is on the wall for Marcus Freeman not to name a starting quarterback after 15 spring practices. Like, if somehow he knows who his starter is on April 12th, right after the blue gold game, to me, it's got to be Steve Angeli at that point. Cause that's the only guy that he's spent 3+ years with now. Like, how could you name CJ Carr your starting quarterback over a senior in Steve Angeli after CJ deals with an elbow injury that, I mean, into December, people were a little worried about, like, hey, is he going to be all right for 2025? That's not an issue anymore, but he did miss some time throwing the football in September, or I guess it popped up in October, I believe it was, maybe the very end of September. There's just no way that I can see Marcus Freeman being like, yep, CJ Carr, he's the guy, sophomore, has never thrown a pass in a college football game. He's the guy. I also can't see Marcus Freeman saying, oh yeah, Kenny Minchey, dynamic, best athlete among this bunch. He's going to do some things that the other guys can't. He's our guy. He's thrown 1 pass in a college football game. And I guess my last point is, I also don't see Marcus Freeman at the end of spring practice being like, yes, Steve Angeli, who has thrown 80 passes and has looked really good, 10-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, comes in. Mitchell Evans said it at the combine last week to continue that conversation. Like, every time that he has had to come in, he's looked really good. I still don't see Marcus Freeman even saying, yeah, that's the guy. So to me, Jack, this thing 100% goes in to fall camp. I just don't see any other way.
I think it's possible they'll know or have a pretty good idea who their guy is at the end of spring ball, but they would not announce it. I think, like, they didn't announce a quarterback after spring ball this year, and everyone and their mother knew who the quarterback was going to be. So I would be extremely surprised if they named a starter, but I wouldn't be shocked if they exit spring ball knowing, or at least being like 95% sure who their guy is, presuming both guys are healthy. They wouldn't name a guy because they wouldn't want a guy leaving, particularly if you're pretty sure you're going to go with CJ Carr. You do everything in your power to make sure Steve Angeli can or is convinced to stay into the fall. Obviously, if he's not the guy, he's going to leave after this year to start somewhere. But you want him as long as possible as a backup, because he's proved over and over again he's an ideal backup quarterback in my opinion.
So this kind of spins in the second half of this 6 minutes here into what some people are saying there in the live chat. TXND, the latest of them. I don't even think, and I should have researched this to know for sure, but let's put all our minds together here. Did Marcus Freeman even explicitly say Sam Hartman is the starting quarterback after the spring, or was that just a writing on the wall situation that pushed Tyler Buchner out? I think it was the latter.
I think he didn't name Hartman. Like this was at the point when like I had the job but hadn't officially started, but I was following
that's right,
kind of closely, but I believe he did not officially name Hartman the starter after the spring game, but after the spring game, everyone's like, okay, this guy's obviously better, and Buchner leaving ended the quarterback competition before Freeman could officially name Hartman the starter.
So if this goes a way that you think it could go, Jack, where let's just say it's completely hypothetical, Steve Angeli just emerges and all the coaches know it, all the players know it, like, yep, that's QB1. For everyone saying Marcus Freeman can't name a guy just to avoid portalers, it doesn't exactly work like that. And I think Tyler Buchner is the most prime example. It's kind of like I think Buchner was going into his junior year, and Hartman was the 5th or 6th year senior who had played so much college football that everyone was like, how the heck is he still playing college football? So that's different, but it could still be the same situation where, okay, like Kenny Minchie, for example, he might know on April 1st, oh man, Angeli is 1 right now, Carr is 2, maybe it's 1A, 1B, and I'm definitely out of the picture. Like, even if Marcus Freeman doesn't come out and say, yep, this is our starter, that could push Kenny Minchie out. So for everyone saying, like, let's drag this thing out just to save all 3 guys a spot in South Bend, I don't think it's exactly going to work like that. For my money,
no,
I think someone's going to leave, right? I think someone's going to leave.
No, I think whoever is running third, which again we believe at this point is probably going to be Kenny Minchie, but we don't know that at this stage. But whoever's running third, I think there's probably a strong chance that they leave after spring. But obviously, it wouldn't guarantee. Not naming a starter doesn't guarantee no one leaves. But it certainly increases the odds. Like if you're 100% sure Carr's your guy and you announce that after spring ball, that is a better chance of Angeli leaving than if you don't say anything after spring ball, or vice versa. By the way, what
you might lose 2 guys in that instance, which
yes.
I've had it in my head. Kyle Kelly, way back on Hey Horka, was like, bold prediction, 2 quarterbacks are leaving. I was like, whoa, that's possible.
Then Tyler Buchner, welcome back to the quarterback room.
Yeah,
man, I have so much to say, but not my place. I still could see Buchner coming back to the quarterback room, regardless of what situation there is. I agree. I think there's going to be a quarterback leave before fall camp. Yeah. That's my educated opinion. I'll leave it at that. Jack, quick reminder: we got to make sure we do that written article at Blue and Gold about the calling our shots on the quarterback battle, because I definitely
the roundtable. I'll text the Slack chat about that stuff either tonight or tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we'll do that soon. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that article at blueandgold.com. Head to the website. So title odds came out from Circa Sports. Ohio State and Texas 5-1 odds. That leads the country in terms of title favorites. Georgia next up 6.5-1. Oregon 7-1. Penn State 7.5-1, and then Bama and Notre Dame. So that's tied for 6 at 15-1 odds. I can't pull up this tweet just from how I'm producing this show. But Brett McMurphy tweeted a couple days ago. So Notre Dame 6th best title odds, and that's winning the title. That's not just reaching it. Does that sound about right to you guys?
Yes, correct.
Do we lose Horka? Horka said that his internet is slow now, so I'll shoot it
this time.
I'll Jack, why is that correct in your opinion, or why does that sound right?
Oh, I thought you were saying like, what does it sound right? As in like, it is you.
That is what the odds are. But do you agree?
Okay. So. Yeah, it's too early to tell at this stage, but I think that sounds right. My stance on Notre Dame potentially making the title game is like they just need to answer some questions first. They need to answer like, does Notre Dame have a quarterback? Does Notre Dame have a functioning and really good defensive line, which is obviously, I think most would agree the second most important thing besides quarterback. You need a defensive line. The odds are that high because a lot of it's based on last year. Like Ohio State being tied for number one. Like, yes, they won the title last year. Do they have the best returning talent along with Texas? It's really hard to say because they have a first-time starting quarterback and they lost most of that defense as well as the defensive coordinator. So I don't know if I'd agree with Ohio State being tied for one from an on-paper standpoint, but the group as a whole, it sounds right. I don't know. I'd probably put Notre Dame ahead of Alabama just because I think there's a lot of questions Alabama needs to answer, and they continue to do well in these preseason polls based on the fact that they're Alabama. But it's tough for me to put Alabama that high right now, A, because they don't know who their quarterback is either, and they're going to be starting an inexperienced guy too, and B, like a lot of their hype is just based on recent recruiting, in my opinion.
Tyler, sorry, Jack, we talked about, as I'm thinking about Tyler, he's going to be joining us in a second.
Yeah.
I talked about this in last night's show with Tim, because we brought this up. Clemson's 20-1. I think if you want like a, potential bang for your buck pick, Clemson, to win the title, I think it's interesting with how much they return. But just let's just go through this. Ohio State, new quarterback. Texas, new quarterback. Georgia, new quarterback. Oregon, Oregon, new quarterback. Penn State.
Oregon, so Oregon's going to be a familiar name to this board. Oregon will start Dante Moore.
Right. And then, Penn State, obviously, Drew Ilar, which is why so much hypes with Penn State and how much they return. Alabama, new quarterback. Notre Dame, new quarterback. It's interesting. The top 6 schools there, all but one with a new quarterback. All but one new quarterback.
I like the Clemson shout because I think they have obviously the guy returning in Cade Klubnik, who I think had a better year than a lot of people give him credit for, just because Clemson was underwhelming until they came out of nowhere to win the ACC. But Klubnik was very good. They might have one of the best defensive lines in college football. Just a lot of returning talent on that defense, and I believe their offensive line is supposed to be pretty good. So I like that value in Clemson too.
Did they finally take a transfer or two, Jack? I haven't been.
They did. They took Will Helt, I want to say his name is, the edge rusher from Purdue.
Yeah, he played against Notre Dame last year.
Sounds right. It's hard to tell just because like Purdue had like 3 good players last year, and the rest of the team was absolutely awful.
I don't know if I did the preview or on paper, but I do remember writing that guy's name, so that makes sense. Yeah, I think he was. If I wrote his name, he was probably as good of a player as they got.
They're good players from last year are on Clemson, Oregon, and Ohio State.
So I don't know what you guys said in the first 3 minutes of this, but
just like, do you agree that Notre Dame has around the 6 highest odds to win?
I think it's going to be another, and I'm kind of glancing over at them right now, like wide open year, like it felt like last year, right? Where it's kind of crazy. Ohio State, I think it was my pick to win the national title going into the year, probably a lot of people's, but on November 30th, whose pick were they to win the national championship, right? And then they went on the run that they did. I think it could be another year like that, where it's just like so volatile throughout the months. It looked like Oregon was going to win it all year, and then Ohio State got their revenge in that game. Georgia always kind of felt like they were there, but Notre Dame did the number on them. Georgia did the number on Texas a couple times. So, like, when I see Texas on here, I'm not going to lie. It feels like they lost so much. I think they just sent 14 guys to the combine. It's the most that they ever have. It's another one of those Michigan situations where, too bad for Texas, they're not coming off a national championship like Michigan did. But remember when Michigan put all those guys in the NFL a couple years ago, or last year at this time, I guess it was. And then the fall off was like real. And I get it. It was a coaching change or whatnot. And Texas seems a little bit more stable in that way. But I don't know if I'm buying the Texas hype. I think it's really hard to repeat. I don't see Ohio State winning a national championship again. If they do, like, they got a lot of room to poke fun at the naysayers and doubters. So, yeah, I think it's wide open. And Notre Dame is firmly in that, like, top 6 teams that could do it.
The big difference between this year and last year, you mentioned it being wide open, is that, like, the Ohio State of last year, the team that, like, was pretty good and then brought almost all of its good players back, is Penn State, and Penn State does not have the top end talent that Ohio State did last year. So I think it's wide open too. Mike, you're muted.
See, I said I would. Thank you, Jack. True freshman to watch going into the spring. Who are you guys really excited to see? Kyle and I write about these recruits for a couple of years. They finally get to Notre Dame, and then we pass the baton to you guys to cover them. So, of the early enrollees, who are you guys looking forward to tracking?
There's so many more of these guys every single year, right? So I got to pull up the list here, and it's gonna be tough to. So what is it like? I think it's like 14 or 15 of them, right? Or maybe more.
I got the roster pulled up. While you talk, I'll count.
Yeah, I think it's a number like that, and then you start looking at the names, and you could feasibly make like a realistic argument for why that guy should be on it. It's 13.
Yeah, 13.
So yeah, I mean, Madden Faremo, I think we got the little tease with the bowl game practices, right? And every time that I saw him out there, I was like, holy cow. So I guess the first time we saw him was New Orleans Sugar Bowl, I think, and I was like, this guy could go out there I think we even saw him before the Indiana game, but he was wearing that cast. But he's a guy for sure, because you lose Jack Kaiser. I think it's going to be the same thing for the linebacker group, is like 5-man rotation. I know somebody on our message board was saying, I don't think you can do that again. Well, yeah, you lose a 6-year guy and you're replacing him with a freshman basically, but this freshman is elite, top tier, stolen from USC on signing day. So he's at the top of my list. But then I'll just give one more guy, and then you can maybe name a couple yourself, Jack. But Jadon Blair is another one of the guys that we saw early in those bowl practices. And
let me interject. Chat's confused. We're talking early enrollees, so spring guys here.
Yeah.
Just
like,
so we make
who are we going to see in 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks? Those are my top 2. They're both on defense. I probably stole your top 2, Jack, but I mean, like I said, there's 13 of these guys. You can choose a lot here.
I mean, those are the 2 obvious ones. I think my feeling is, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the potential instant impact guys are actually summer guys, like the Burgesses and Dallas Goldens, and Will Blacks of the world. Mark Zachary is another one who I believe has the athleticism. But Faremo and Blair are the 2 obvious ones that could be instant impact. I look for Faremo. The linebacker room is too good for him to start right away, in my opinion, but he could take on the role that KVA had last year, where he was the 5th guy, and it's like, all right, we have enough guys, but this guy has to be on the field. Which what basically Max Bull said about him last year. Jadon Blair, a dude who's listed at 6'5", 195 on Notre Dame's website, which is crazy to have a safety who's that tall. We saw him in in bowl practice. Like, he was like a scout team wide receiver, which is nuts for someone who's not even going to play that position, and who should be first semester senior in high school at that point. So Blair's probably not my number 1 guy, because I feel like the path to playing time at safety is more wide open than it is at linebacker. And I think he's just such a physical freak. that he could play right away. Some other guys who might not play, who probably won't play right away, but I'm looking at the one guy besides those two and the quarterback we'll get to in a sec, who was on Pete Nakos's list of like guys I'm hearing are playing well guys I'm hearing are doing well in winter conditioning and in playoff practice for those who applied, was Cam Herron, the center, who we saw on campus, and like that dude is ripped. I mean, he is as strong of a high school offensive lineman that I've seen. He's got that frame. He's only 6'2", but that frame looks like it has plenty of room to fill out. And Notre Dame, I think, sees him as their center of the future after the Ashton Craigs and Anthony Knapps and Joe Ottings of the world have passed by. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
A couple oddball ones here from me before it sounds like you want to talk about Blake Hebert, the quarterback. Yeah. Antavius Richardson, or Scrap Richardson, but I think they went back to Antavius Richardson. I wonder if Scrap sticks.
Very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, Scrap might stick. He's got time to develop a nickname or whatnot. Where's this guy? What are they going to do with him? Is kind of what I'm looking at. What's he listed at right now? Is it DB or wide receiver?
He came in as a wide receiver. He was recruited.
Wide receiver, okay. Wide receiver, and I'm going to name Jerome Bettis Jr. as well, because I get it. He wasn't ranked high, but like wide receiver is the enigma position at Notre Dame. It just is. And I guess quarterback, but like you could say that about any place in quarterback. I want to see like Antavius Richardson is a guy that Alabama wanted, right? And maybe not to play wide receiver because Alabama gets whoever they want to play wide receiver. But could this be a situation where Notre Dame, it's not really a diamond in the rough because, again, Alabama wanted this guy, but can they do the right thing with him? Can they develop him? Can he come in and be like this athlete that looks really good on the outside? And we saw that a little bit with Micah Gilbert last year, and then he hardly plays. And in the one moment he has a really cool opportunity, drops a touchdown pass. Like, I get it. Scrap Richardson and Antavius Richardson's probably not going to do huge things in year one, but this is spring ball, man. I just want to see what the kid looks like, and I'm interested in that. And then obviously the Buses kid is on campus, and we get to watch him play football too. That's pretty cool. So I'll be looking at those two on the other side of the ball from the first two that I mentioned.
That is pretty cool. We also get to see Plaxico Burris's kid on campus, who is a guy who the receiver room is pretty crowded at the moment. There's a lot of young talent kind of waiting for their chance. So he might have to wait his turn behind the KK Smiths and Micah Gilberts of the world. But I think he's a guy that a lot of people think he had a great senior year, who can challenge for a back end of the rotation spot. Blake Hebert, the quarterback, he's gotten some buzz from bowl practice. He looks the part. He's got the athleticism, and he's a guy who, like, say Kenny Minchie and say two of the three of Minchie and Jelly and Carr aren't there in 26, which I think is a pretty real possibility. Looking at Blake Hebert might have to be a primary backup quarterback a year from now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he looks like.
Good stuff, boys. I agree with what you guys are saying. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone. But the three that we saw in bowl or four saw in bowl practices, we saw them. I saw Hebert throw to GAs. That's fine. Burris, Richardson, boom. Burris. I think Burris plays this year. I think he's going to be in the rotation.
Interesting.
That's my
stuff
pick.
Is good, man.
He looked great.
Yeah.
I'm going to end the show with a hoops update. The men's team, not so great. Let's talk about the women's team. Player of the year, ACC tournament coming up. We'll go over to Ty here.
Yeah, player of the year, Hannah Hidalgo. I was a little bit worried that Tania Latson was going to come up and kind of snipe that award from Hidalgo. It was Hidalgo's to lose all year, even though Latson was the highest scorer, not only in the ACC, but those are two top scorers in college basketball all season long, even ahead of Juju Watkins of USC. So it was all kind of building up to that head-to-head, and Latson and Florida State got the best of Hidalgo and Notre Dame in South Bend. So recency bias would have told you, hey, maybe Latson's going to win this award. The voters, though, and I will say that I'm one of them, and I'm as objective as it gets. Jack knows this. I take being unbiased and objectivity to the highest standard in journalism. I voted for Hannah Hidalgo because, dude, it's the defense, it's the rebounding. She's incredible. Obviously, it wasn't just my vote that made her win the award. A lot of other people thought the same way too. And she's also the defensive player of the year in the conference, which is like
back to back, correct?
I think the girl from I don't know. I don't think did she win it last year too?
I
I don't.
believe Hidalgo won not player of the year, but defensive player of
Yeah,
the year
she didn't.
last year.
She didn't win defensive player of the year, but I thought Elizabeth Kitley, who I think won it last year, also might have won defensive because she just gets all the blocks. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm an
I'll
idiot.
look this up.
Yeah, crack staff that one for us.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hidalgo's amazing. She's got some days off, which I think would really behoove her if you've been watching the last month or so. And I plan on doing an article before the ACC tournament starts on Friday at 5 p.m. She was Defensive Player of the Year last year?
Yeah, ACC Defensive Player of the Year and Naismith Defensive Player of the Year semifinalist.
Yeah, so
the steals are nuts.
That's what puts her over the top ahead of Latson. And like nobody else in the country is doing that and doing what she does on the offensive end of the floor, which is, like I said, be the second leading scorer in college basketball. It's pretty remarkable. So, but now we got to kind of shift to this ACC tournament where Notre Dame has not been playing its best basketball in the last week and a half. Good win on Sunday against Louisville. That's always a weird game. Jeff Waltz coaches a physical brand of basketball, and they like to take that out on Notre Dame like nobody else. And you saw that a little bit. And Notre Dame withstood that, played well in the second half. I thought that was huge for confidence going into the ACC tournament. And look, yeah, you're the 2 seed because NC State got the tiebreaker over you, but you were going to end up seeing NC State in the final, even if you were the 1 probably. So to me, Jack, this is kind of leading up to a rematch, a revenge game, if you will, for Notre Dame. And I will say, if they get it, they will have beaten probably Louisville again. I think is on the same side as of the bracket as them. That would be another good win. Beat them twice, and if you beat NC State, you're probably a 1 seed. I think Notre Dame is legitimately playing for a 1 seed if it wins the ACC tournament. If it loses, even as soon as Friday or Saturday, I think you're locked in as a 2 with the resume that you have with all the great wins. AP poll comes out on Friday or on Monday, Jack. And Notre Dame has wins over the top 3 teams in the AP poll, and Notre Dame is number 6. So I don't think there's any scenario where Notre Dame falls out of a 2 and you're playing for a 1. So really exciting time for head coach Neil Ivy's team, who also has 2 first-team All-ACC players in Olivia Miles and Sonia Citrone. They deserve their shout. Kate Koval makes freshman All-ACC team. Sonia Citrone was on the defensive team with Hannah Hidalgo, and Liatu King was second team All ACC. So like you got the players. Now it's tournament time. Neil Ivy says it's 0-0. Go win yourself a couple trophies, man. If you can, go win some championships. I think this team is talented enough to do it, even with the way that they lost a couple games in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I think the difference between a 1 and a 2 is pretty big for them, in my opinion. I think you might have said it at some point that it wasn't a huge difference because the teams they beat. But I was looking at Charlie Cream, the ESPN women's basketball bracketology guy, who had Notre Dame on that 2 line, which I think is the consensus at this point. But the 1 seed in their region was UCLA. And if I'm Notre Dame, that is the one scenario I would like to avoid being in the same region as UCLA, because UCLA has the big man in Lauren Betts, who is the one player if I'm Notre Dame that I want to avoid because of the post player disparity. I think Kate Koval had a really good game against Louisville, correct?
Correct.
But you kind of need to pick your spots to play here just because the athleticism limitations at this point. And if I'm Notre Dame, I'm confident I can beat anyone in the country, but a team led by just a monster in Lauren Betts in the middle would scare me a little bit.
And it's a little scary also that Notre Dame hasn't, like, Notre Dame beat USC, beat UConn, beat Texas because Hannah Hidalgo played well. Olivia Miles played well. Sonia Citrone, when she's your number 3, like Sonia Citrone, recently there's been some people who rightfully have been saying, hey, she should probably be the first person taking shots. I don't like when Notre Dame is in that area because Miles and Hidalgo have to be amazing if the post presence isn't going to be what you said, Jack, and it's not. It's just like they don't have a post presence like that of UCLA. So if they don't have the guards going and they don't, that's when you lose to NC State. That's when you lose to Florida State, and you would definitely lose to UCLA in that scenario as well. So the potential is definitely there, but I mean, it's March. You got to play well.
Oh yeah. This is March, as the kids say.
This is March.
The kids meaning John Rothstein. Like
Muted. That's the second time, man.
It's Notre Dame six-pack, 6 Notre Dame topics, taking 6 minutes on each of them. If you're just tuning in, rewind, watch from the beginning. Great stuff from the guys. Yeah, that's going to do it. We'll see about the time for next week. 8 p.m. is just going to bring in better live viewership. 5 p.m. might be easier on us. We'll see. For next week, I'll let you guys know on my Twitter. Hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. Really appreciate everyone tuning in, watching live, watching back, listening to the podcast. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we will catch you next time.